There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, let's continue to do what is good in the interest of safety for all present in the chamber. Let's keep our masks on and sit at our designated areas. The first item on the order paper is a motion in the name of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party. Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. I move that the House, on the recommendation of the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, and subject to the concurrence of the National Council of Provinces, to appoint Mr. Polile George as Secretary to Parliament on a 5-year performance-based contract with effect from the 15th of June, 2022. I so move.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Whip. I will now recognize the parties that wish to make a declaration. The usual times for declaration of votes will apply. Any member from the DA? Order, honorable members, I've got a timer here.
House Chair, I can feel the love. Thank you. Thank you. Am I cute? Oh, look at that. Madam House Chairperson, Madam Speaker. Parliament has been in an omni-shambles for years, having to complete a scandal with the last full-time secretary, as well as having gone through an extended period of having only an acting secretary, who, as we all know, fails to have teeth because they act in a role and cannot fulfill their full potential. While we strongly appreciate the efforts made by the Speaker to meet with the leaders of our parties for 2 periods, there are still many issues that plague us and worry us about this new appointment, and these questions remain unanswered, and there are many certain terms that we are concerned about. When it comes to Mr. Polile George, one cannot help but look at the substance of the person that we are going to perhaps appoint today as the parliamentary secretary. Mr. Polile was the head of SALGA, which is a huge role mandated to perform 2 strategic roles within the system of government, to particularly robust and enforce the rights of local government and constructively disrupt areas of existing systems that make important and impossible decisions for government to deliver on its mandate. However, during the time, the Auditor General of South Africa has highlighted the dire state of our local governments in South Africa, noting amongst others an amount of 189 billion, and I say that again, 189 billion rand of fruitful and wasteful expenditure that took place under the tenure of Mr. Polile George. Mr. Polile George has left local government health in a death spiral, and that cannot be ignored. In 2021, only 28% of the municipalities had submitted quality financial audits for auditing purposes, only 11 of which were received a clean audit. The Free State and the Northwest Province have still not yet delivered a single clean audit between them. Citing revenue shortfalls and liquidity concerns in July 2021, Moody's had no option but to downgrade the following municipalities: Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and Nelson Mandela Bay. November saw Nelson Mandela Bay and Ekurhuleni being downgraded again. In such cases, Mangaung, Rustenburg, and Ekurhuleni, the credit down rating started in 2019. Municipalities make up 42% of Eskom's revenue. However, municipal arrears have ballooned to a staggering amount of 35 billion. President Ramaphosa himself admitted that only 5% of municipalities in South Africa are financially stable. They have weak institutional capacities, poor financial management, corruption, and political instability. All while Mr. Kholile George received a very generous salary during his term of SALGA, way above inflation. 5.8 million rand per annum, up from 5.339.467 in the 2018-2019 year. Now, we cannot disguise the fact that we are the legislative arm of government, and Parliament fails, the rest of the country fails. As they say, if Parliament catches a cold, the country catches flu. We need someone of sound and stable financial ability to look after the finances of Parliament and make sure that we are not institutionalized into an area where cadre deployment is allowed to occur as it did during state capture, and decisions are made based on ideology and not pragmatism. According to this, the DA does not find Mr. Kholile George an applicable and suitable candidate, and therefore will not be agreeing to the appointment of him as the permanent Secretary to Parliament. I thank you.
Thank you. The EFF.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Chairperson. The Economic Freedom Fighters reject the proposed appointment of the ANC deployee, Mr. Kholile George. We want to make it clear that we do not trust him, and we will never trust him. We will never trust deployees of the ANC in our lifetime. Parliament ended up with a secretary for almost 10 years now because a deployee of the ANC was given unchecked powers to handle Parliament's finances. Despite our warning that the guy is wasting Parliament's money flying around on useless study trips while Parliament is failing to prioritize its core business of Parliament. That is why today we do not have the capacity to draft private members' bills, and we are here to rubber stamp executive bills. We've only passed one private members' bill since 2009, and that is not because members of Parliament do not have private members' bills, but Parliament does not have capacity. That is why today we are holding meetings in the Good Hope Chamber, because Parliament did not have the capacity to comply with occupational health and safety requirements as per the Act. Despite our call for Parliament to investigate a more practical and cost-efficient way to accommodate members of Parliament here in Cape Town, instead of using apartheid Parliament's villages, we still do not have proposals. Instead, Public Works is wasting money on inflated contracts on renovations. We also want to make it clear that no one is going to be paid some amount that is negotiated in corridors. An advert was publicly circulated, and the salary of a Secretary of Parliament is public knowledge, and it's 2.4 million per annum. He applied knowing, and if he does not want the advertised amount, he should have applied. He should never applied and go home. We are not even sure that he has the required competency to deal with complex institution systems. We still have councillors who served in previous municipal terms and who are struggling to receive their pension because of the incompetence of SALGA. So therefore, once again, Chairperson, the EFF rejects the proposed name of Mr. Kholile George for the position of Secretary of Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, as the preeminent legislative body in South Africa, it almost beggars belief that such a critical office as that of Secretary to Parliament has been vacant for 5 years. Such a vacancy in an office of great strategic importance to the optimal functioning of Parliament only fosters instability when instead leadership is what is required. Thankfully, the acting Secretary to Parliament, Ms. Chiawa, did a more than admirable job in holding the fort. She must be recognized and thanked for her dedication and hard work during this transition period. Chairperson, besides professional competence and appointment based on merit, The office of Secretary to Parliament must be held by an individual who encapsulates the law and values that underpin our democracy. During my tenure as a member of this Parliament, there have already been 2 instances where we have had to remove a parliamentary secretary for maladministration. In 2012, then Secretary to Parliament Zingela Dingani did not crown himself in glory. He was found guilty on 2 of the 9 charges of misconduct leveled against him relating to an irregular salary advance. Then in 2017, yet another Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Gengezi Mgidlana, was placed on special leave and later charged with 13 counts of serious misconduct. In 2019, Mr. Mgidlana was found guilty of 7 of these 13 charges and summarily dismissed by unanimous decision by both the NA and the NCOP. So, Honorable Chairperson, what is the solution to prevent such a situation from occurring again? Firstly, the position must be free from political interference. And secondly, it must serve the interests of members of both houses of Parliament in an impartial and bipartisan matter. The incumbent must have the requisite skills, be apolitical, and be ready to hit the ground running in respect of the current needs and challenges that this institution finds itself facing today. Technology and innovation must play a central role as we continue our foray into the 4th Industrial Revolution and in respect of our efforts to become a paperless, environmentally aware Parliament. I sat on the interview panel, which took a unanimous decision to support the candidature of Mr. George. He evinces good leadership skills and credentials. My advice, Honorable Chairperson, to Mr. George is, you may try to be all things to all people, but you must be firm in the execution of the mandate of your office. It is also public knowledge that Mr. George has taken a cut in his salary for this position, and it should be noted and appreciated that he has accepted the position of service to the nation over market-related salary expectations. However, we expect assurances from the Speaker that there will be no special treatment or salary adjustments relating to this role. We will monitor this very closely in the Joint Standing Committee to Parliament, and we support the appointment of Mr. George as Secretary to Parliament. Thank you.
We will now recognize the FF Plus.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. The appointment of the Secretary to Parliament is most likely the most important appointment that Parliament makes, because that is the #1 official in Parliament, and that person will set the tone for the rest of Parliament. Now, Parliament, in terms of Section 43 of the Constitution, is the legislative authority of the Republic on national level. It is a very, very, very important institution. If you listen to what is being said already, we are starting on the wrong footing once again. Where we are today, it's clear that there's no contract signed yet between Parliament and Mr. Xolile George. So clearly we've got a problem. Political parties made it clear to Madam Speaker that there are some things that we need to clear up. The panel referred to met almost 2 years ago, and since then there's not been any action in that regard, bringing Parliament on board or the different political parties in this process. Surely Parliament is different from any other state department or from anybody else in the sense that in Parliament we have represented not only the governing party, but also the opposition. And surely that all members of Parliament and all parties in Parliament, being either the opposition or government, should be satisfied that the person being appointed is capable of being absolutely impartial, should not be a political deployee from any political party, etc. It was already stated that there's concern in that regard. If one looks at the curriculum vitae of Mr. Xolile George, it's quite clear that he came through the ANC's ranks throughout. If you look at all the references he gives at the end of his curriculum vitae, they're all ANC people. There's no doubt about that. Now, my concern was, and I've indicated that to Madam Speaker, is that we need a copy of the contract involved, because I think that is quite important. We have not been furnished with a contract. As a matter of fact, the contract has not been signed. But I can't think that Parliament will be asked to appoint this person today. That Parliament will be asked to appoint this person today if there's not already an agreement reached. So clearly there must be an agreement between Madam Speaker and Mr. Kolili George in terms of the appointment, in terms of his remuneration, etc. We were furnished this afternoon with a generic contract, not a signed one, which indicates what is the position with a base fixed term contract of employment. And section 7, clause 7 of that contract deals with how the contract can be terminated. And that is quite important because we are being asked today to appoint Mr. Kolili George for a period of 5 years. In 2 years from now, we'll have an election and nobody knows what will happen in that election. So if you look at clause 7, you'll find that there's a provision in this generic contract that says the contract can be terminated with 1 month's notice. Now, I hope that that will also be in the final contract. We don't know. You must take cognizance of the fact that the final contract will be asked to be seen because we believe it's very important.
Thank you.
With all of that taken in mind, we will not support this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now recognize the ACGP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the Office of the Secretary to Parliament is a crucial position in the running of Parliament, as it is responsible for the provision of efficient administrative support to the accounting officer, that is the Speaker. And in view of this important function, the ACDP believes that great care must be taken when appointing the new Secretary, hence the multi-party committee that conducted the interviews. Sadly, previous appointments to this important position have in 2 cases been disastrous, with 2 secretaries having to be fired following disciplinary hearings. Parliament has, as a result, been without a permanent secretary for almost 5 years. And since June 2019, the Deputy Secretary, Ms. Penelope Chewa, has been acting in this position. And the ACDP would like to thank her and her team who have provided immense support to the Speaker and indeed to all members of Parliament during 2 very significant crises, namely COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown and the devastating fire at Parliament earlier this year. We've always worked very well with Ms. Chewa and her staff and have found her to be diligent, committed and very hardworking, and for that we thank her. Now, the challenges facing the new Secretary are immense, from critical skills vacancies in committees to other sections to the impact of COVID-19 and of course the need for Parliament to return to normal operations and the consequence of the devastating fire. Now, we've listened carefully to the concerns of other parties that have been expressed, particularly given the poor state of our municipalities. However, we would like to give Mr. George the benefit of doubt. Indeed, particularly given the fact that a multi-party panel interviewed Mr. George and unanimously recommended him to the position. The salary issue seems to have been resolved and will, in our understanding, be directly in accordance with the position as advertised. This, as well as the contract issues, should be dealt with by the Joint Standing Committee on the Financial Management of Parliament, which will be the correct forum for exercising oversight in this regard. The ACDP will therefore support this appointment. I thank you.
Thank you. The UDM, you are recognized.
House Chair, thank you very much. I think it's important for us to provide a bit of context to this debate. That firstly, there was a multi-party panel that interviewed Mr. George and other candidates, and that panel unanimously agreed, as already stated, voted in support of Mr. George as the right person for this position. But also last week, when party leaders raised concerns about this appointment, the matter was taken off the program, the order paper, because the Speaker felt at the time that it was important for her to take the party leaders into her confidence and to maybe try and address their concerns. Fast forward to yesterday. Yesterday, there was a similar meeting where the trashing out of all the concerns and these issues was done. And there was an agreement that we should indeed support this appointment on condition that the conditions of employment for Mr. George, especially remuneration, is going to be as per advertised, right? That is the position of the UDM, that we are going to support this appointment, but we want to make sure that his remuneration is as per the advert. Because if that does not happen, then what is important here, Speaker, firstly, I think it's important for us to extend a message of gratitude to Uma Mutyawa, for holding the ship for the past couple of years when she was acting as a secretary, as we prepare to usher in a new secretary. But he also needs to understand that I always say this thing, I say it's important to consider credentials. We must encourage people to invest in their personal development. But experience in South Africa is that some of the SOEs have been run completely to the ground by people who are overqualified and highly qualified. So he mustn't take it for granted that because he has the credentials and he has the experience and the expertise that he has developed over the years, that running an institution that is as important as Parliament is going to be a walk in the park for him. But it's also important to understand and to manage all the various stakeholders that interact and work with this institution, because you can't manage an institution such as this one without having an acute understanding of that. But also more importantly, is that we have an important duty and an important constitutional mandate to make sure that we hold the executive to account. Everything it does must make sure that Parliament is actually true to its constitutional objective and that we're able to discharge that on a daily basis. Siyabulela.
Stokos and Flonisha. We will now invite the ATM. Are the ATM on the platform? No? Okay, we proceed. Good.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Chairperson, we welcome the fact that the critical vacancy is finally being filled. We were not part of the selection process or panel, but we trust that the process identified the best possible candidate. We do not doubt Mr. George's ability to manage our Parliament. We wish him well in the role and trust that he will provide the much needed stability and good governance that we need. We thank the acting secretary for her service and we support the appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. The NFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, allow me to start off by thanking our former acting secretary, Mrs. Baby Tiawa, for her service and commitment to Parliament, although we are not sure why she was not offered the position in any event at some stage. But having said that, we are quite satisfied, Chairperson, that a multi-party panel, together with other stakeholders, conducted the entire interview process and unanimously agreed on the candidate. And remember that the multi-party panel, which included different political parties, represent us in one way or the other, because not every party could be represented. Now, given the fact that they came up unanimously, and I think we have been told that there was a massive gap between the first and second candidate and the second and third candidate. The only outstanding matter was the issue of the salary that was clear in the package that was offered. And when you apply for a package, for a position, you obviously take into consideration that the package that is being offered. And we have been given that undertaking by the Honorable Speaker that indeed it will be in line with the package that was actually offered. Now, taking that into consideration, we had some concerns. This matter was deliberated extensively in the multi-party party leaders forum with the Speaker. And we've all agreed that, you know, with the Honorable Speaker providing us a copy of the advertisement, we will support this. Yes, indeed, we can change our mind and support or not support. The fact of the matter is this, that all processes were followed, and it would appear from the information we have that indeed Mr. Kolile George is the best candidate suitable to be able to provide us with this excellent service that is going to be required from him as the Secretary to Parliament. In light of that, the National Freedom Party will support this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. The AIC. Are they there?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Proceed,
Honorable
Honorable
Chair.
Chapter.
It is almost 3 years since Parliament had permanent accounting officer. The Secretary to Parliament occupies a critical role in the architecture of Parliament's accountability function. Their role constitutes a central core in Parliament's operational efficiency, effectiveness, and administrative agility. We have noted with concern the delays that shrouded the appointment of the permanent head. The acting secretary to Parliament has, in the meanwhile, kept the boat sailing with remarkable gusto and commitment. On the other hand, Nehao has been both toxic and helpful to this process. They prematurely candidate before all the I's and T's were dotted. They were equally helpful in detecting corruption under the previous administration, the efforts which led to the dismissal of the previous secretary. Our contribution to this appointment of the secretary is solely premised on seeing the process run its course under a climate of fairness and transparency. We are therefore interested in the purity of the process. We will support the appointment of Mr. George as the Secretary to Parliament. I thank you.
Honorable Majorina. Thank you. We proceed now and recognize Cope. Not here. PAC. Yes. Bab Nyonso, ngicela kushifte kancane.
Thank you. Yes, I'm saying it.
Now we can hear you. Yes, we proceed. Proceed, Honorable Nyonso.
Chairperson, I'm saying we support the appointment and thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Al-Jama. Honorable Hendricks. Not on the platform, okay. We now recognize the ANC.
Honorable Chairperson of the House, the Speaker, honorable members. The African National Congress warmly welcomes the recommendations of the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the Council on the proposed appointment of Mr. Xolile George as the Secretary to Parliament. This we do it as we know that Mr. Xolile George has been there, as Mr. Mulder has said, that in his CV, he was the member of the ANC, he's still the member of the ANC, he still be the member of the ANC even tomorrow. But that does not disqualify him for executing this job of responsibility. I'll just make an example here. You go to the governors of the Reserve Bank, the former governor Tito Mboweni, the former governor Jill Marcus, the current governor Liseja Khanyako. They've done extremely well in that institution because they were trained by the African National Congress. If there are people who went off the tangent, it's because of their own doing. It's because of their own doing. So that's why we say, as the ANC, we know Comrade George very well as an organization. We traveled with him during the challenging times since the inauguration of local government sphere. It is precisely these challenges that has molded him and tested his capabilities and competencies dealing with the complexities of local government as the outgoing CEO of SALGA. The position of the Sea of Salga required vision and understanding of the long view of where the sphere of government needed to progress. It required a vision in dealing with the legislative and regulative reviews that were and are still necessary. His capable thinking could be seen influencing the decision-making process, always providing recommendation and seeking to demystify matters. He had a lasting presence of being able to interpret the application of the Constitution in local government to meet the needs of the people for local government sphere for better service of the people. What is very important here is that Mr. George comes to Parliament after we suffered a severe setback in January, where the fire devastated the Parliament. So that's why we need a permanent secretary who will be able to take tough decisions to ensure that the Parliament is restored to its former glory. He will step in Parliament where it is having a strategic framework, which is putting the people first and the members of Parliament at the center. That's why when you look at the strategic plan of Parliament, it's very clear that the strategic priorities are going to be the oversight, enhanced oversight, plus the enhanced public participation. So he knows very well what is entering into. So the task at hand is complex and not easy, but that is why the presiding officers have tabled such a recommendation. They'll be looking for someone who could fill the task at hand and who could track the record of who has the track record of being able to deliver under challenging circumstances. He will need to rise the Parliament where it needs to evolve to, tackle some of the long-standing issues and provide leadership. We are all aware that this particular post has some serious historic challenges, and these lessons have been put firm behind. As the members have alluded here, the former Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Zingeli Dingane and Mr. Mkidlan, they were found wanting. But the issue, what did the executive authority do? The executive authority did act on that on the spot. So that's why they were dismissed, because even this executive authority will do the same if anything goes wrong. Who can here guarantee that when you employ someone, that person is going to fulfill the contract up to its perfection? That's why the contract will always have an opt-out clause, so that if a person does not deliver, that person can be terminated as necessary. The contract which is there, that the contract can be terminated within a month, which is very important. So what is also very important here, Chair, Chairperson, is that we welcome the President having determined the incoming secretary to be placed on performance-based contract. Performance of Parliament is the matter that the ANC has constantly been raising in the quarterly reports that have been tabled for debate. We trust that the performance of Parliament as a whole will rise as we move forward. But at the same time, as the ANC, we wish to express our deep gratitude to the acting Secretary to Parliament, Ms. Baby Jawa. It certainly has been a long and difficult period that she had to serve as an acting secretary following the suspension of the previous secretary. True to the characteristics of a woman, she remained focused, determined that whatever adversity had risen, the job of the function of the Secretary to Parliament would be taken forward. That determination created for her moments of great difficulty, and want to acknowledge today that it was not easy for the acting Secretary to Parliament. Notwithstanding, we provided the support that was necessary. Sometimes we provided the headaches as well, but at all times she knew that there was a network of support that she could turn to, precisely because we have the interest of the development and progress of our people at heart. In line with the long-standing ANC policy of continuity and change, we are encouraged that Mr. George will have Baby Jawa there to provide that continuity, but also to facilitate the necessary change. That's why one of the achievements of the acting secretary is that in the previous 5 years, the Parliament has had clean audits. Mm-hmm. We expect that as she has done that, she's able to work the incoming, help the incoming secretary so that that good work can continue going on. In supporting the recommendation of the presiding officers, we wish to say to Pauline George, we welcome you. We will work with you in the interest of our people and their Parliament. And at the same time, we will hold you accountable for the task that your job function asks you to do. We welcome you, Mr. George. The ANC supports the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe. Honorable members, I now put the motion. Are there any objections to the motion as raised by the Chief Whip of the Majority Party? Honorable Mazzoni?
Thank you, House Chairperson Barato. Please note the objection of the Democratic Alliance.
Noted.
Chairperson,
Okay, let me allow you on the virtual platform. Yes, Honorable Yako.
thank you, Chairperson. Please note the objection of the EFF.
Thank you, Honorable Mulder.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Also note the objection of the Freedom Front Plus. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, the objections will be noted and the motion is agreed to. I will now request the secretary to read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises on oversight visit to Transnet Port of Durban.
Thank you. I will now recognize the Honorable Makata. I can already see your face on the virtual platform. Yes, Honorable Makata, proceed to introduce the report.
Thank you, Honorable Comrade Chair. The Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises is tabling to the National Assembly for debate and adoption of the oversight visit to Transnet in KwaZulu-Natal province with specific site visits to the Port of Durban, Transnet Engineering Durban Operations, and Transnet Pipelines National Operating Center in Durban. The oversight visit to Transnet occurred from the 3rd to the 4th February 2022. Honorable Chairperson, the oversight visit Transnet, especially the visit to Transnet, especially the Port of Durban, Transnet Engineering Operation, and Transnet Pipelines National Operating Center was not attributable only to the poor performance of Port of Durban over the years and during the current economic crisis associated with COVID-19 pandemic, but also to a number of structural and structural inefficiencies in the freight transport sector. Firstly, on the Port of Durban, Honorable President Ramaphosa announced the establishment of the Transnet National Ports Authority as an independent subsidiary in line with the National Port Authority Act 2005 to attract private sector investment in port freight, including expansion of the Port of Durban at an estimated cost of more than 100 billion. Hence, it was important for the Portfolio Committee to assess the progress made in terms of both the expansion and the corporatization of the Port of Durban since the establishment of Transnet National Port Authority. In particular, the interest of the Portfolio Committee was to observe the measures put in place to reverse the negative effect of lack of maintenance and poor operational performance, which trigger the challenges of congestion at the Port of Durban. Secondly, on structural and structural inefficiencies, the inability of some of the preferred bidders to deliver locomotives in line with the 1,064 locomotive contract has undermined the availability of rolling stock and maintenance material, and this in turn disrupted rail operations and triggered supply chain bottlenecks. Furthermore, fuel theft and related infrastructural vandalism, coupled with the lack of demand of rolling stock, have impacted negatively on Transnet Pipelines and Transnet Engineering revenue performances. It is due to these factors that the oversight visit to Transnet took precedence. Honorable Chairperson, the members of Portfolio Committee who participated in the oversight visit to the Port of Durban, Transnet Engineering Durban Operation, and Transnet Pipeline National Operating Center in Durban identified the following non-exhaustive findings. One, members were impressed by the plans to expand the Port of Durban in order to unlock its potential. Two, members noted with concern the impact of legislative and policy impediment which affect the efficiency of operation, particularly the turnaround time for procurement of equipment and parts. Okwesithathu, members acknowledge the advanced manufacturing capabilities and capacity of Transnet Engineering, however, was concerned with the slow delivery of these 1,064 locomotives. Augustine and members observed the fuel theft is the work of the organized syndicates and requires intervention from the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security cluster as it costs Transnet pipelines a loss of revenue. However, the situation looks like to improve. Consider, for example, Transnet Pipeline has developed partnership with the private sector to address fuel theft and infrastructure vandalism through advanced technologies and security personnel. More importantly, security implementation plans are being pursued aggressively within Transnet and in collaboration with the state security agencies to address the recurring loss of revenue, as well as unreliability of the rail network due to theft incidents in the most profitable freight corridors. For yet another example, the Department of Public Enterprises is working closely with the National Treasury and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition to address legislative and policy impediments which affect the turnaround time for procurement of equipment and parts. Honorable Chair, the Portfolio Committee made a number of recommendations, and these are aimed at ensuring proper implementation of the effective response measures to deal with challenges affecting the Port of Durban, Transnet
Honorable
Pipeline,
Makaka,
among other. Chairperson?
unfortunately, your time has expired, Honorable Member. We now
Okay, thank you,
proceed.
Chair.
Thank you. I will now recognize political parties wishing to make declaration. The DA.
Thank you, Chair. The oversight visit was a timely precursor to the picture painted in a recent in-depth cover story in the Financial Mail. It described a situation nearly 2 decades and billions of rands after a wise American railroader vainly sought meetings with senior managers at Transnet in 2005 to see if the utility would consider concessioning its abandoned branch lines to private operators. Facing a brick wall, the American took his money and railroad experience and never came back. It's a prescient story about an SOE that represents the skeleton, spine, and arteries of our failing economy. The conclusion of the article is that the rails, ports, and pipelines operator has 17 years later reached a critical point in its existence, dare I say one that is pregnant with peril. As the Minerals Council of South Africa's chief economist says, this economy depends for 60% of its GDP on exports and imports, and virtually all of its transport and logistics. The sobering fact is, Transnet's impact on the mining sector, for example, has double the impact of the electricity crisis if it fails. And yes, exogenous factors like climate and COVID have hampered delivery all over the world for that matter, but make no mistake, historical and ongoing endogenous factors pertaining to policy, theft, mismanagement, and ineptitude have combined in 2021 to reduce revenue by 10.5%, drop rail freight volumes by 13.3%, and reduce port container throughput by 10.5%. This speaks, in the words of the article, to Transnet's own abject internal failures. Notwithstanding the plans afoot to mitigate failure, and the various reasons ranging from the wrath of the climate gods through to state capture and to the ever culpable piñata of apartheid, the lesson to be learned is take responsibility and fix the problem. And don't just moan about how you can't fulfill your agreements while mineral and agricultural exports decline at an alarming rate. It's now approaching 2.5 years since the appointment of the new CEO and her team, but the results have, if anything, been worse. This may be in part because of the cumulative effect of the ANC's chickens coming home to roost, but surely it must be because they are seemingly unable to fix the fiasco. And while opting to be half pregnant, President Ramaphosa has ruled out the privatization of Transnet, while directing it to allow private rail operators to operate on the country's network. Perhaps if the board and senior executives at Transnet were frank about the pitfalls inherent in the terms offered and made clear what is actually needed to fix the mess, things would be different. But I guess that may be tantamount to writing your own letter of retrenchment, cadre to cadre, as it were. Still, if private concessions are belatedly seen to be the way forward for rail and ports, friendly policy noises are insufficient to attract private industry. They have to be incentivized and not sold a dummy. And clear procurement framework with detailed opportunities must be provided. The goals of the participants need to be aligned, and laser-like concentration on those areas where rail has a distinct advantage needs to be implemented. Importantly, economic and financial assessments on all potential participation areas must be conducted. These assessments must be extended to compare delivery by the private sector to that of the state, and to ensure a more efficient solution is achieved. Each opportunity must be subjected to an economic and financial analysis to determine the feasibility, as well as to inform what is best delivered by the state or the private sector, even though the history of the state's failure over the past years provides a clear answer to many. This is what is needed, not the PowerPoint PR of oversight visits that highlight paltry achievements and a plethora of plans that have little chance on delivering on their lofty aims, while the spine of the economy cracks, the arteries clogs, and the bones ossify. And the Transport Minister's assurance, Gordon's assurance in March 2021, that full private sector access to Transnet's network would be implemented in the next 3 years, if not sooner. Despite that, the picture is bleak. Yes, Transnet has announced its intention to sell 16 slots, but it's also announced that it has no plans to open up third-party access to rail network. So much for the minister's assurances. Why, after all, they admit to being behind the curve?
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Trouble is, South Africa can't afford it. The time to
No, time is up.
Who's that? Honorable members, you don't do that, please. We have a house here. Let's allow the house to do its work. The EFF?
Much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Chairperson, by the way. The Economic Freedom Fighters rejects the report of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprise on Oversight to Transnet Port of Durban. When we went to Durban as the committee, we met with the organized labor, and it was clear that the drive to privatize port services is the reason behind the deliberate collapse of Transnet. The white capitalist establishment has repeatedly made it clear that they are not interested in creating jobs or economic development. They are going to automate and mechanize ports operations when we have more than 11 million unemployed people. Transnet spent millions on cranes that are incompatible, and no one has used them or been trained. They are just gathering dust. This is the deliberate collapse of Transnet we are talking about. All goods that were previously transported by rail are now on our roads, and Transnet does not have a practical or implementable plan. Instead, all these trucks are driving through small towns, damaging our roads. We saw during the oversight the levels of damage to Transnet infrastructure because of crime, and nothing was done about it. There is no effort to use Transnet's infrastructure and capacity to industrialize. The Transnet could not tell us what is going to happen to Isipingo farmers in terms of what will happen to them, even when it is clear that they are an important agro-progressing player and this will be destroyed. Chairperson, these are all issues that the committee report should have attended to and made a clear recommendation on, but it didn't. If we don't make a recommendation that results in change, we are not different to tourists. Therefore, the EFF rejects this committee report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. IFP?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. While the main purpose of the committee's visit to the Durban port was to assess the progress that has been made in the expansion of the port and the impact of cooperation and its challenges and efficiencies, I must declare the IFP's displeasure at the lack of focus by government on how exactly the expansion of the port of Durban will create jobs and how the cooperation will include Black businesses, not just what we were told there that they are only included as the cleaners of vessels. We cannot beat around the bush, Honorable Chair, on the most pertinent matters which affect the majority population of the people of KZN and the country at large, and that is the transformation agenda and redress. While we welcome the progress that has been made thus far at this port and the commitment and delivery of Transnet in further developing this space for commercial, maritime, and industrial purposes, we must stress the inclusion of our people in making this an economic reality. It will be a grave missed opportunity, Honorable Chair, if we were to allow this expansion to once again exclude the majority in favor of the minority. South Africans right now need an economic miracle of some sort, not only to put food on the table, but to activate generational wealth creation. Honorable Chair, our people are being robbed of opportunities to grow and create jobs because we have allowed the kinds of corruption to spread in all sectors of our economy. We therefore want to expedite the feedback and recommendations of the State Capture report in the investigation and prosecution of individuals who were implicated in the acquisition program of 1064 locomotives. South Africans want to see the head rolling. Furthermore, it is all good and well when we are able to attract big players such as multinational corporations at our ports, but this cannot be done at the cost of excluding the smaller players which are led by Black young people, women, and people which are differently abled. In terms of labor, Honorable Chair, we ask that government must be mindful in protecting the jobs that may be lost due to the new innovations such as automation. In doing so, we believe that upskilling and developing our labor force to accommodate and welcome the new technologies will play a significant role in making sure that people don't lose their jobs while we are trying to transit in this new technology. Honorable Chair, the IFP will support this report without reservations noted and taken into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Telezi. The FF Plus.
Chairperson, no declaration from the FF Plus. Thank you.
Thank you. The ACDP. Do we have a member from the ACDP who wish to participate?
Yes, Honorable House Chair, my apologies. We've got some load shedding and I am just getting myself sorted. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, House Chair. Honorable House Chairperson, as we consider this report, the ACDP is conscious of the importance of the Port of Durban, not only to the economy of eThekwini municipality, but to that of South Africa as a whole. The Port of Durban is ranked first in sub-Saharan Africa, third in Africa, and fourth in the Southern Hemisphere in terms of container throughput. It is the busiest port in Africa in terms of vessel calls. The customers of Transnet include terminal operators, shipping lines, ship agents, cargo owners, and clearing and forwarding industry. The port contributes 20% to Durban's GDP, 11% to KZN's GDP, and 2% to South African GDP. In terms of employment, it directly employs 1,183 jobs and some 50,000 indirect jobs. I have fond memories of the Port of Durban as a young boy.
Honorable Thring, please, just a few minutes. Honorable members, I can't even hear what Honorable Thring is saying. Honorable members, please. No. You will appreciate him at your own time. Honorable Thring, please proceed.
As I was saying, Honorable.
That's what they're saying. So proceed, Honorable Thring.
And so I have fond memories of the Durban Harbor as a young boy. It was a place where we would climb onto boats to dive into the water. It was a place to swim, a place to fish. Sadly, however, fishing and swimming would be a hazard to one's health due to the numerous sewage spills into the harbor, which threatened to close down some of the restaurants in the vicinity. In this regard, Transnet must liaise with the city of eThekwini to prevent sewage plants from releasing their effluent into rivers which run into the harbor. The ACDP is aware of the partnership plan with the private sector to expand the port of Durban at a cost of some 100 billion rand. Should this upgrade plan come to fruition, it has potential in the next 10 years to see 60% of the container traffic into and out of South Africa being handled by the Durban port. I will, however, not hold my breath on this. If the multi-billion rand Durban dig-out port project is anything to go by. The ACDP agrees with some of the committee's recommendations, which encourages multi-sectoral partnerships and engagements, seeks to avoid job losses, and the calls for a focus on the performance of the whole value chain rather than one indicator in the port of Durban. In conclusion, the recent floods and last year's riots have placed the port on a back foot. As one of our national key points, the port of Durban cannot be allowed to become dysfunctional as Eskom. The price to be paid would be too high. Thank you, Honorable Chair, who wish to use it. Thank you.
Thank you. We proceed now and invite the UDM. Not here, ATM. Good.
House Chairperson, we have no declaration. Thank you.
NFP, thank you. NFP. AIC. COPE. PAC. Al-Jama. The ANC.
Malbongwe.
Honorable Chairperson of the House and members of the House, I greet you. There seems to be confusion here as to what's happening in the logistics industry. People want to talk about job creation as if the vessels are going to create jobs. There are auxiliary industries that's going to create jobs after we've expanded the port. This thing is simple, it shouldn't be confusing. Two, the issue of the port expansion is a demand necessitated by the trends in the industry currently. You see the ships that are delivering goods are bigger than the capacity of the port currently. Therefore, it's important to expand the port so that we attract bigger vessels to come and dock in our port so that they open up a new regional business for the regional logistics companies, meaning one vessel will come from Asia or wherever and dock in the port of Durban and leave the containers for the entire continent. We are creating many jobs, not in the area of Durban only, but throughout the continent, both across the east and the west coast. If people understood this, there would be no confusion. Honorable Chairperson, the report of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises on the oversight visit to the Transnet port terminals was validated by the 22 set of the National Address, in which the Honorable President Ramaphosa stated that that our economy cannot grow without efficient ports and railways. Over the past few years in particular, the performance of the port of Durban has declined relative to ports in other parts of the world and on the African continent. Furthermore, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the preponderance of the rail and pipeline infrastructure theft and vandalism left implications lasting into the present day at Transnet. As these factors affect businesses and subsequent compromise the country's economic growth rate, the Portfolio Committee found it imperative to develop a three-pronged approach to the oversight visit to Transnet. Firstly, the Portfolio Committee visited the Port of Durban to assess the progress made in the expansion of the port, the impact of corporatization of the port, challenges and efficiencies of the port since the establishment of the Transnet Ports Authority as a subsidiary. Secondly, The portfolio committee visited Transnet Engineering Division to ascertain the progress made insofar as assembling the already delivered locomotives in the 1064 locomotive contract with China North Rail, China South Rail, Bombardier, and General Electric is concerned. In addition, the portfolio committee was also interested in observing the impact of South Africa's deindustrialization on Transnet Engineering and the measures that the division has put in place to offset this said reality. Thirdly, the portfolio committee visited Transnet Pipelines National Operating Center in Durban to understand with greater precision the consequence of fuel theft and Transnet Pipelines revenues and the mechanisms identified to improve theft. Honorable Chairperson, the portfolio committee made several observations, and it became evident to the portfolio committee that the Port of Durban was experiencing operational challenges, including but not limiting to berthing delays as a result of high marine craft breakdowns, all ship repair facilities and infrastructure, made-on-off congestion, and declining levels of operational efficiencies at the container terminals. These challenges impacted negatively on the efficiency and performance of the Port of Durban, thereby leading to the unnecessary congestion. Regardless of these challenges, Honorable Chairperson, the empirical element of progress was undeniable. Take for example, TNPA has established both the integrated decongestion team formed with daily operation meetings held and implementation review done bi-weekly at the Port of Durban, as well as decongestion stream as a committee of the decongestion task team to deal with congestion as soon as the collaboration between TNP and the municipality to transform it on WAF road to Port of Durban is finalized. For yet another example, Transnet Technical Department has done root cause analysis, and the department was engaging original equipment manufacturers to deal with equipment challenges and equipment availability, and long procurement process were being monitored closely by the address terminal inefficiencies and underperformance. Aside from all this, Transnet TNPA has an agreement with the South African Navy to relocate its base from Salisbury Island to Richards Bay and forge a partnership with the Gauteng municipality to develop a second access road to link the Port of Durban with N2 and subsequently N3 to alleviate traffic congestion. Honorable Chairperson, the members of the portfolio committee appreciated the manner in which Transnet National Port Authority was focused on improving operational efficiencies at the Port of Durban through procuring additional equipment and implementing new systems to reduce congestion. This shows that the NC-led government is hard at work. Honorable Chairperson, the portfolio committee observed that Transnet Engineering was facing serious challenges in terms of availability of sustainable, partly due to insufficient demand in current rolling stock requirements, both local and in terms of the demand for African continent to sustain the divisions, partly due to availability because of the parts in terms of the locomotives that are there. Obviously, this is flowing from the problems from the 1064 contract. In the whole, Chairperson, the ANC supports the portfolio, this report, and it's therefore took out of. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Member. At this juncture, I'll recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party, the Honourable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honourable Mazzoni?
House Chairperson Barata, please note the objection of the DA.
Noted. Any other party?
House Chair, please note
Yes.
the objection of the EFF.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With the noted objections, the report is that adopted. Thank you. And agreed to. We will now ask the secretary to read the second order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Police on oversight visit to Norwood and Tembisa Police Station Gauteng Province on 4 and 5 March 2022.
Thank you. I will recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Jumat Peterson, to introduce the report.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, members, the Portfolio Committee on Police conducted an oversight visit to the Gauteng province on the 4th and the 5th of March 2022 to assess service delivery at the Norwood and Tembisa police stations. This was informed mainly by a reported theft of exhibited firearms from the Norwood police station. Once more and again, all political parties agreed that we needed to go there and agreed on the findings that we had after the report. On the 23rd of February 2022, the SAPS briefed the Portfolio Committee on the theft of firearms from the Norwood police station's evidence store in August 2021. According to the SAPS, an audit had revealed that 175 firearms were missing from the safe, which included 134 exhibit firearms and 41 amnesty firearms. During the site visit at the station, specific attention was given to access the security improvements made at the SAPS 13 store at the Norwood police station. We are receiving quarterly reports on the progress made in relation to the firearm theft. Honorable Chairperson, House Chair, the committee recommended that the SAPS conduct a countrywide audit of all SAPS 13 stores to ensure that no firearms were stolen from other evidence stores. I'm pleased that as a result, the SAPS 13 audit phase 1 has been approved for implementation in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Western Cape, which reportedly commences in this year and will be finalized about July 2022. We will monitor to ensure that it actually does happen within the next 2 months. Phase 2 will then proceed in the other provinces based on risk categorization. The Tembisa police station was consistently appeared on the top 30 police stations with the highest recorded crime stats countrywide. During the third quarter, the station ranked number 17 in the top 30 police stations with the highest recorded crime stats countrywide. In terms of crime weight contribution of the station in Gauteng, it ranks 5th out of 143 stations. Similar to the Norwood area, the committee raised significant concern about the high number of liquor outlets in the area and questioned the role of the Gauteng Liquor Board. Alcohol is having a significant impact on our moral fiber and violent crime in particular. The committee was shocked by the fact that the detention cells were not in use, as it is a state of disrepair and not maintained by the owner of the building, which is the Ekurhuleni municipality. The committee has already embarked on a strategy to address the situation by calling a meeting between the ministers, and we have already called this meeting between Police Minister, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, and this meeting has really been highly successful. We'll have a follow-up meeting with the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure to sort out further problems with SAPS. The meeting proved extremely valuable as the desperate state of police stations, office accommodation, and detention cells were laid bare. Drastic interventions are required and will be implemented. We are confident that this situation will improve. The committee made several recommendations in the report, most of which have already been implemented and are bearing fruit. The importance of oversight visits should never be underestimated and is one of the most significant oversight tools at our disposal to ensure accountability and improved service delivery. Our committee has been allowed to conduct more oversight visits, and we thank the Chief Whip, the House Chairperson, the Honorable Chief Whip, House Chairperson, and all those who are allowing us to do so. In conclusion, Honorable House Chairperson, we will look at the proximity of liquor outlets, especially taverns, to the impact of crime, including gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable House Chairperson, the committee has the support of the ANC, and the committee recommends the implementation and approval of the report. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. Okay. Unmute data. Oh. Honorable member, unmute.
Can the honorable member unmute? We can't hear him, he's talking. The DA has muted him.
I am back on the line. I was just out for a while. Thank you. May I proceed, Chairperson?
Okay, continue, Honorable Kaplan.
Chairperson, the South African Police Service is a department tasked to fulfill all the responsibilities in terms of this act and is subject to parliamentary scrutiny through the Portfolio Committee on Police. The Minister of Police may, in terms of existing legislation, declare a firearm amnesty from time to time, during which period people may hand in unlicensed firearms or may even apply for the renewal of such firearm licenses under certain conditions. Unwanted firearms may also be handed in during this period. Such firearms are handed in at police stations for safekeeping in the SAP 13 stores until it can be disposed of safely in terms of prescripts, with a large percentage of these firearms destined for destruction. The Portfolio Committee on Police arranged an urgent oversight visit on the 4th of March to the Norwood police station to acquaint themselves with the circumstances that led to the second disappearance of firearms from the SAP 13 stores. It is a known fact that some of these firearms ended up in the hands of gangsters in the Western Cape and were used in gang-related murders. The conviction of former Colonel Prinsloo for similar offences is a telling example of this. Even today, it is glaringly evident that the police is not on top of their game anymore to ensure the safekeeping of firearms under their control. Every year, unacceptable numbers of official firearms and ammunition losses by the police has relegated this once proud organization to nothing more than the unofficial main supplier of firearms and ammunition to gangsters and organized crime. This situation and the ever-growing mess at the Central Firearm Register cannot be tolerated indefinitely, and the Minister of Police must be held responsible to address this as a matter of urgency. Failing which, he must follow in the footsteps of his previous National Commissioner and allow the nation to appoint a competent minister to steer the ship to calm waters. Die Tembisa polisiestasie word tans geakkommodeer in 'n gebou wat behoort aan die betrokke munisipaliteit. Die huurgeld is 'n baie klein maandelikse bedrag en gevolglik is die munisipaliteit nie genee om enige herstel en instandhoudingswerk te doen nie. Aan die ander kant kan die Departement van Openbare Werke en die Suid-Afrikaanse Polisiediens ook nie geld spandeer nie, aangesien dit nie 'n staatsgebou is nie. Die gebou word dus glad nie in stand gehou nie en 'n oplossing moet dringend daarvoor gevind word. Daar word voorgestel dat onderhandelings moet plaasvind sodat die gebou teen 'n nominale bedrag aan die staat verkoop kan word om die probleem aan te spreek. Kennis is ook geneem van die feit dat daar meer misdaad in Tembisa se stasiewijk gepleeg word as in Soweto, alhoewel Soweto 'n baie groter gebied bedien. Dit is verder ook 'n bekende brandpunt vir geslagsgeweld en gevolglik moet alles gedoen word om hierdie probleem in bedwang te bring. Chairperson, die situasie is tans glad nie baie gunstig nie. Baie min polisiebeamptes word aangewend vir misdaadvoorkoming, terwyl die opsporing en skuldig bespinde syfers maar 38 en 36% onderskeidelik is. Vakante poste word nie gevul nie en meer reserviste moet gewerf word. Tydens ons besoek het hierdie stasie slegs oor 3 reserviste beskik. An integrated approach is recommended and all role players across the spectrum are encouraged to join hands to uplift this community. It can be done. Chairperson, we support this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I was part of the committee delegation when we conducted this oversight visit. For every generation of the quality of policing is such that communities themselves, together with private security companies, are more trusted to deal with the crime than the police. At the Norwood police station, we were told that even though there was no evidence of widespread police involvement in crime, there were police who were previously indicted for dealing in illegal guns. The proliferation of illegal bottle stores goes on unpoliced in Norwood, which causes high levels of violent crimes. The police station itself is purely maintained by Public Works, and there is no cooperation between Public Works and the municipality in ensuring that police premises are properly maintained. The police in both Norwood and Tembisa have largely allowed the operation to Tula tags to do as they wish in these communities, unleashing waves of violence against poor African immigrants. In Tembisa, victims of gender-based violence do not even bother going to the police station because they know that they will not receive any help. The conviction rate of people arrested in Tembisa is less than 40%, and detectives are overworked, with each carrying over 150 dockets. All this points to a very incapable policing system in the most highly charged areas when it comes to crime. There is no capacity to detect, prevent, investigate crime after it has happened. Our people are left on their own, and the situation is even more horrible for the victims of gender-based violence. We need a complete revamp of our police system in Gauteng. We need police not to be involved in the politics of the Turkish operation to Dula, but to enforce the law without fear or favor, to taking bribes from drug lords. It is the corrupt police who enable the spread of drugs in our communities. Therefore, we accept the report. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member, IFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Oversight visit from an essential and necessary part of the Parliament work and provide an in-person opportunity for MPs to determine whether service delivery taking place, as well as to engage with the community. Several issues were common to both Norwood and Tembisa police station, including concern around the high number of liquor outlets and shippings. As the IFP, we are in support of the community's request and committee recommendation that the Gauteng Liquor Board should review its processes of issuing licenses for tavern and shippings, as well as increase the number of inspectors. According to research public in psychology today, 48% of homicides, offenders, and alcohol in their system at the time of the offense, while 37% were intoxicated. Substance abuse can therefore be seen as a direct threat in the community. The IFP further encouraged it, called the Minister of the Police to engage with his concern in the Department of Police, Public Works and Infrastructure to address serious challenges relating the office recommendation accommodation. SAPS officers cannot perform their duties if they have no offices. If the offices are dilapidated, we regard the Operation Dudula. It was described in the report as a community initiative focus on the crimes prevent with the local areas, including the illegal foreigners. The IFP went on record in April 2022 and said that campaigns such as Operation Dudula, which largest certain group of the people, target the second group of people, cannot be permitted to the law in their own, to take the law in their own hands.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The IFP accept the recommendation of the committee. I thank you.
FF plus.
Dankie, agbare voorsitter. Honorable Chair, the Norwood Police Station came into the spotlight after certain firearms that were used in criminal activities were related back towards the evidence stores, more commonly known as sub 13 stores. And then the questions started to arise, how is it possible that 175 firearms can be lost or stolen from a sub 13 store, and who is in control of that? Now, Chairperson, we know that the person who was in charge of this sub 13 store committed suicide. We visited the police station, and I must say that the store, the evidence store, is in the basement of the police station. So it is not that anybody can come forward and enter the store and steal something. It is only people who have access and official access to that store. Now, Chairperson, we visited, we looked at things, but there's one thing we did not do. We focused on the 170 firearms, but we did not ask any questions about any other objects and evidences in the store. I then posed a question to the Minister of Police in Parliament and asked, in the audits that took place on that specific store, are there any other objects missing? And I think the shocking thing is, Honourable Chair, is that the Minister then revealed that it was found that, for instance, that almost 80,000 rand has been lost or stolen, many other objects, and all of those objects are actually evidence in court cases. The number of court cases where items found lost are 54. What does that mean? That means that the justice system is failing the people because of the theft in sub 13 stores. And therefore, Chairperson, we will have to look into these matters. The Freedom Front Plus will support this report, but we still have a lot of work to do. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP would like to support this report and express our concerns, as the report does, about the incidents of the theft of these 175 firearms, which have been traced via various criminal activities. And I think what the Honourable Prunabot has just referred to is a matter of great concern to us, because many of these items or exhibits and evidence in criminal cases, 54 criminal cases, and therefore justice will be denied to those victims of those crimes where this evidence is no longer available. And so, Chairperson, we appreciate the committee that visited this police station. We committed that we respect and appreciate the report, but we also are pleased that a more wider investigation will take place as to the safeguarding of exhibits and evidence, particularly firearms, through police stations throughout the country. And let this be a lesson to us to ensure, and to particularly to the Minister and the police officials, to ensure that exhibits are protected, given the fact that they can firstly be used illegally, should they be on the streets where it comes to firearms, and secondly, the need to have them as evidence for criminal cases. Thank you, Chairperson. The ACDP will support this report.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. UDM. ATM. Wood.
House Chairperson, we support the report.
Thank you very much. NFP. AIC. Cope. PAC. Al Jamal. ANC.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The African National Congress welcomes the report tabled on the oversight visit by the Portfolio Committee. The oversight focused on a few police stations in Gauteng province. The visit police stations are Norwood Police Station and Tembisa Police Stations. The oversight visit to these two police stations provided the members of the portfolio with an opportunity to perform their oversight responsibility and get a sense of the real issues on the ground. Not by hearsay, of mense wat hier praat is, of honorable members wat hier praat, hulle was nie eens daar nie. Hulle praat op research issues, wat hulle geresearch het. The members of the committee were able to see for themselves the conditions on the ground, and they had opportunity to ask questions based on the information presented and the observations. The Norwood Police Station where there was the theft of firearms from the subs 13 evidence store. The PC members received a briefing on the arms issues, and a historic amount was presented to the members. The PC also got a brief on the community and the crime intervention strategies deployed by the police in the region. The committee
The community had an opportunity to raise their issues to members. One of the issues that came up strongly was the fact that the CPFs were not visible, provide support to the police to combat crime in the areas. The committee highlighted the importance of the collective responsibility to fight crime. The African National Congress emphasized that fact that crime can never be won by the police only, but it is collective efforts from civil society and private security must work together. The committee made the observation that in both areas there are many outlets that include the Sabines. PC members felt that there is a need for this to be monitored as it creates problems in the surrounding areas. I must say, members, when we visit these areas, we don't hear it, we see it, we pass those areas. It was not nice to see how our youngsters hanging in the Sabines, drinking alcohol in the early of the morning. Firearms theft continues to unresolved. However, it is clear that someone from within was involved in theft of firearms because the evidence safe is built at low ground level in a safe place, and a case has been opened and investigation is underway. The committee made the observation that Tembisa is still a hotspot for gender-based violence and femicide. However, the supporting of gender-based violence, femicide cases is decreasing. That could be because of society has lost confidence in SAPS. The Department of Social Development has to come on board and support SAPS because gender-based violence will not be won by the police alone only. The committee emphasized the importance of proactive policing. There is a need to intensify the police visibility at all serves. The committee recommends that community policing forums, Metro Police, Department of Social Development, and SAPS should join hands in dealing with the challenge of drug abuse. The police should pay attention to the intelligence, lead policing to prevent crime. On the issue of Norwood, the police must provide reports quarterly on the progress of the firearms theft investigation. Quarterly. The operation of retrieving the stolen firearms must be intensified to avoid the use of those weapons in criminal activities. In the process, there must be a countrywide audit of all SAPS 13 stores to ensure that there are no other stolen firearms from the evidence storage. The Gauteng Liquor Board must do inspection in these areas and even review the process of issuing licenses. Why are we saying this? Because we observe there is too much liquid, people who are selling liquid, like the Sabines, selling liquid. So that must be really an issue that must be addressed. It was really a disturbing point for all of us in that oversight. The African National Congress welcomes the report and recommend that the report be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. And now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Chairperson, on behalf of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party, I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Report agreed to. The Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation on Oversight visit to Eastern Cape Province.
I will now call upon the Honorable MS Tseki to introduce the report on the chair.
Pula. We're dealing with water here, so must reflect that. It is important that I should here on behalf of our glorious movement recommit our policy statement that says water is life and sanitation is dignity. So the opposition must know that this is the formation of the African National Congress statement. The World Economic Global Risk Report for 2021 lists extreme weather and failure of climate actions as clear and present dangers. These risks relate to floods and droughts, extremes of both ends. The world is currently confronted with these challenges. South Africa is not immune from these issues. We have witnessed devastating drought in the recent past, and the drought continues to affect some of the northwestern side of Eastern Cape, Free State, Northern Cape, Western Cape, while the eastern coast, which is KZN, and part of the southern eastern part of Eastern Cape of South Africa has recently battered by severe floods which killed many people and destroyed property and left many people in destitute. I'm tempted to put a blame on those that owns the means of productions who are friends to the Democratic Alliance. This is in line with the climate change forecast by the South African Weather Services that predicts persistent by the conditions in the Western interior and water conditions in the eastern part of our country. South Africa is a water scarce country. We do not have enough water. We do not have enough water resources, and climate change is worsening in this situation. It is partly on this premise that the Portfolio Committee of Water and Sanitation conducted an oversight, a visit in the Eastern Cape on the 24 to 27 January to, among others, assess the water and sanitation challenges, inspecting existing large build bulk water projects such as dams, bulk pipelines, desalination plants, and eradication of the bucket system. The committee assessed the following projects: Ngamakwe bulk water project, which is in Amatole; Kocha bulk water, which is in Amatole as well; Mzimvubu water project, which is in Jogabi; King Sabata Dalijabo presidential intervention water projects in OR Tambo; Zambe bulk water system in Sarah Batman; James Kleinhans water project, which is in Sarah Batman; and Noord phase 3, a bulk water system, which is Nelson Mandela. Ngamakwe review, a reviewal of water supply, phase 5, which includes the bulk pipelining to Tsomo Butterworth, aims to develop an appropriate regional water supply to provide bulk water infrastructure to supply approximately 78,000 people in 120 rural villages. Very important. Often Nguma municipality for domestic water. This is an emergency bulk water supply project to alleviate a drought situation in Butterworth. There was also a visit in Mzimvubu where they developed a conjunctive scheme compromise of multi-purpose dams, OR Tambo District Municipality water supply project at the King Sabata Dalinjabo presidential program, Ndabe water project, which leads to development of central boreholes field at Port Alfred, augmented by James Kleinhans water in Makanda, includes the augmentation of the existing water project. The Noordgedag Kuga low-level scheme is being upgraded. To this end, the committee noted that COVID-19 almost derailed the implementation of this project. Nevertheless, the committee noted the following challenges with serious concern: that slows spending of the grant allocations has been realized.
I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The usual times for declarations of vote will apply. Honorable Nicholas Maber. Please note it's his maiden speech.
Thank you, Chairperson, honorable members. The report of the Portfolio Committee's oversight visit to the Eastern Cape is a story all too familiar to the people of South Africa. The purpose of the visit was to enable the committee to familiarize itself with progress on large bulk water and sanitation projects, and the situational overview and analysis was presented to the delegation, and 7 projects indeed were visited. Some of these include projects, very important ones, such as the Inzamvubu and the Mtata projects which are extremely important for the socio-economic development of the area, for commercial development, and for the provision of water to literally millions of people in the region. It would be true to say, Chair, that the economic outlook and the future prosperity of the entire Eastern Cape depends to a large degree on the speedy and successful completion of these projects. But most, if not all of them, are years behind schedule. The report is little more than a register of delayed and incomplete projects. It paints a grim picture, honorable members, of the various issues which stand in the way of much needed infrastructure upgrades in one of the country's long-suffering provinces. The following issues are listed: incorrect specifications, delays in procurement processes, poor budgeting, planning and execution, late payment of invoices, incompetent contractors, community unrest, and so on and so forth. It's a lamentable litany of poor governance, financial mismanagement, and service delivery failure. What is of particular concern, honorable members, is that these projects involve the construction of sophisticated and modern water and sanitation systems, which would, upon completion, require a large number of well-trained technicians to manage these on a daily basis, 7 days a week. Now, a week ago, just over a week ago, I was part of a delegation to the Van der Kloof Dam, where raw sewage literally flows directly into South Africa's second largest dam, simply because the local municipality has, for all practical purposes, come to a standstill. This is just one of 43 such municipalities across the land where local government has imploded. And so, honorable members, the $64,000 question which this House needs to look at today and ask ourselves is the following: who is going to manage and maintain the various infrastructure projects currently under construction? And what is the department doing to ensure that projects are handed over to municipalities and entities that have the requisite technical know-how to operate them successfully and sustainably? Or are we going to continue throwing billions of rands at infrastructure without the people to manage it? The oversight report also confirmed that the Amatola Water Board stands out in its failure to deliver. Unsurprisingly, it is also the subject of various SIU investigations. But speaking of water boards, honorable members, just yesterday at the Portfolio Committee, we heard the sad saga of the various water boards in South Africa. We were briefed inter alia on the so-called reconfiguration of water boards. And yes, reconfiguration is of course long overdue, given their wretched record with billions of rands in irregular expenditure and severe governance failures. The story of water boards, honorable members, in South Africa is in fact the story of the African National Congress. Whilst we support the recommendations of the report, we live in eternal hope. We live in eternal hope that the 10 recommendations will be fully implemented by a party.
They must be reminded it's his maiden speech and they're not allowed to heckle him around the speaker.
In the maiden speech, is not supposed to be offensive.
Honorable member.
It's not offensive, it's the truth.
Don't point too much. Honorable member, you can go ahead.
Honorable members.
Is there a point of order? Oh, who's making a point of order? Who's making a point of order? Honorable Gauteng.
No, Chairperson, I was raising the order that if a member is having a maiden speech, he cannot be on the offensive and attacking other political parties. Thank you. Yeah.
Self is talking the truth.
Honorable member, thank you very much. Honorable members, just tread cautiously.
Honorable members.
Honorable members, give him a chance, please. We are being attacked by both the GA and the ANC, honorable member.
Thank you. Thank you, House Chair. Whilst we support the recommendations of the report, we live in eternal hope that all the recommendations will be fully implemented by a party which has become notorious for its inability to implement. The miserable irony of it all is where the ANC is strongest. Where the ANC is strongest, we see that governance and service delivery is at its weakest. If you look at the various provinces, there's indeed an inverse relationship between ANC performance at the ballot box and ANC performance in government. And so we might ask, is this the doleful destiny that democracy has bestowed upon the people of South Africa? We say, hell no, certainly not, because just as the terrible drought in the Eastern Cape will surely come to an end, so too will the reckless reign of the ANC. I thank you.
Honorable members, thank you very much. Honorable members, the members who make maiden speeches are kindly requested to tread very cautiously so that they don't throw stones even before they have built houses. He or she must be accepted in the house and be nice to the house, at least the first time. Thank you, Honorable Member. AFF.
Thanks, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, the Portfolio Committee of Water and Sanitation went to Eastern Cape in order to assess water and sanitation challenges, incorporating inspections of existing large bulk water projects, such as dams, the scope, nature, and efficacy of existing desalination plants and eradication of the bucket system. This also included assessment of current large water infrastructure projects, desalination projects in Port Alfred, and the recently launched plant in Alexandra, and future bulk water infrastructure projects, such as the long-awaited Nzimbumbu Dam, to elevate the current water crisis and ensure the future sustainability of water provision in the Eastern Cape. In all the projects that I have mentioned, starting with Ndlamakwe bulk water project, the key risks highlighted by the presenters related to pipe materials that were not of a correct specification. The main contractor within the department's construction unit not submitting the required procurement documents with specifications on time, which led to delays. On the Thora bulk water supply project, the estimated expenditure at the time of the oversight visit was at 577 million on completion. Once again, the presenters highlighted the key risks and issues related to this project. This related to delays in the procurement of materials as the contractor for contract 8 was experiencing cash flow problems. On the Mzivumbu water project, which is long overdue and project designs began in 2015, but to date, only an access road at 31% has been completed. Such an important project towards ensuring water supplies to the communities that have not received water from government water sources, but rely on fetching water for their needs from rivers and streams. The OR Tambo District Municipality Bulk Water Supply Project and the King Sabata Dalindlebo Presidential Water Project is key to extending and developing 5 corridors and serving over 1 million people, with the Mtata Bulk Water Project aiming to unlock housing and commercial development for this region. Some of the challenges on this project relate to delays in the completion of the project due to the shortages of funds, piecemeal allocation over the years, and poor performance of contractors, leading to the cost of these contractors' escalations. On the Ndabe local municipality bulk water supply, the risks identified on this project related to the increased costs of the projects due to the delays in payment of PSPs and contractors, the termination of contractors and incompetent contractor. With this type of degeneration and poor quality checks by the department and the contractors it employs, there is no hope for water security in the Eastern Cape. We accept this report and ask that all those responsible for derailing of these projects must be brought to book. I thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. FF plus.
Thank you. Thank you. Die Vryheidsfront ondersteun hierdie verslag.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Well,
Okay, so sorry, Honorable Member. Just a
Yes.
second. It should be the IFP. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, the recent devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of the Eastern Cape have again highlighted the critical need to invest in the maintenance of water infrastructure and the urgent need to attend to aging infrastructure. The floods in the Eastern Cape alone caused the collapse of at least 30 houses in the OR Tambo District Municipality. As Parliament, we need to urgently ensure that the maintenance of water infrastructure serving vulnerable communities is not compromised by corruption, fraud, or delays in procurement services. The oversight visit by the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation in January 2022 to the Eastern Cape to assess large built bulk water projects, as well as water and sanitation challenges in the province, provided the committee with valuable insights. These oversight visits form a critical function of each committee's parliamentary work and provide a unique opportunity to assess and understand concerns faced by the public. These oversight visits and the questions rising from such visits should be continuously assessed to ensure that the executive is held accountable by Parliament. According to the committee report, a pertinent issue that stood out during the oversight visit to the various water infrastructure projects in the Eastern Cape was the delay in the procurement process. This is highly concerning to the IFP. For instance, the Ngamakwe bulk water project, which aims to supply 78,000 people in 120 rural villages with domestic water at an estimated cost of 1.2 billion rands, is currently seriously delayed due to procurement issues relating to SMMEs, as well as the appointment of professional service providers. This project, which is described as an emergency bulk water supply project, is critical to alleviate the drought in Butterworth, and we cannot allow this project to be compromised by procurement issues. The IFP strongly endorses the Portfolio Committee's view that the department should develop strategies to address the challenges associated with SMMEs, and we will closely monitor progress reports in this regard. According to the committee report, the issue of slow procurement processes was again very evident during the oversight visit to the Ngambe bulk water supply project. The IFP again strongly agrees with the Portfolio Committee's recommendation that the department should urgently address the poor performance of the Amatola Water Board. Furthermore, in general, when examining the committee report, it became clear that the oversight visits had identified an urgent need for consistent, continuous monitoring and oversight of these projects. There needs to be monitoring, there needs to be clear, pardon?
Thank you very much. Your time is
Oh,
up.
thank you, Speaker.
FF Plus,
Thank you.
please come in.
Die Vryheidsfront ondersteun die verslag. Verskeie probleme is deur die komitee uitgewys, onder andere dit wat veroorsaak dat projekte nie betyds afgehandel word nie en ook baie duurder kos as gevolg van vertragings. 'n Goeie voorbeeld is die nooit gedag waterprojek by Port Elizabeth. Dit het reeds by 2017 begin, maar sal hopelik aan die einde van Julie 22 voltooi word. Die Amatola Waterraad het nie die kontrakteur betyds betaal nie. Hy toe die perseel verlaat en baie tyd en geld het verlore gegaan. Kontrakteurs wat dikwels aangestel word, beskik nie oor die finansiële vermoë om 'n projek suksesvol te bestuur nie, en dit veroorsaak dat hulle kontantvloei probleme ondervind en nie die projek weer kan voltooi nie. 'n Nuwe kontrakteur moet dan aangestel word wat veroorsaak dat die projek meer kos as die oorspronklike prys. Die komitee verwys ook na gemeenskapsonrus. Die inwoners is ongelukkig omdat nie genoeg mense aangestel word nie en hulle vertraag die projek. Dieselfde gebeur ook met regsgedinge wat nie net duur is, maar ook tydrowend is. Die besoek was deur die komitee was in Januarie maand. Ek was nie teenwoordig nie, maar die dinge het in Nelson Mandela Metro totaal verander. Binne 14 dae sal 40% van die inwoners van die Nelson Mandela Bay oor geen water beskik nie. Ek was teenwoordig waar meneer Barry Martin, direkteur van water en sanitasie in die Nelson Mandela Metro, daarop gewys het hoe belangrik grondwater is. Nou, die Vryheidsfront het al herhaalde kere gepraat van watertanks, maar hierdie keer is daar watertanks opgesit en is hulle besig om baie gate te sink, wat 'n baie positiewe ding is vir die Nelson Mandela Metro. Maar grondwater is baie belangrik. Ek wil net vir u vinnig voorlees. 22 Maart was Wêreldwaterdag. En toe lees ek dit. Groundwater is invisible, but its impact is visible everywhere. Out of sight, under our feet, groundwater is a hidden treasure that enriches our lives. In the driest parts of the world, it may be the only water people have. Maar die vraag is nog steeds, is grondwater volhoubaar? Wat moet ons dan doen? Ek dink die belangrikste van ons is om spaarsaam met water te werk en bevolkingsgroei te temper. Baie dankie. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP takes note of this report regarding the Portfolios Committee's oversight visit to the Eastern Cape. It was aimed at assessing the water and sanitation challenges in the province and included inspections of existing large bulk water projects such as dams, the scope, nature and efficacy of existing desalination plants, and the eradication of the bucket system. And it also aimed at inspecting progress of future bulk water infrastructure projects, such as the long-awaited Mzimbubu Dam, in order to alleviate the current water crisis in the province. House Chair, the ACDP, like so many others, is deeply concerned about the looming water crisis in various parts of the province, including Butterworth and Quebec. Dams in the province have been almost empty for more than a year, due mainly to the long-standing drought, but also due to more than half of the catchment area being degraded by alien tree invasion overgrazing and wetland destruction. Now, one of the key sites visited by the committee was the Nooitgedacht-Kuche low-level scheme phase 3, which is a project situated in Kuberga and which started way back in 2017 and was only completed earlier this year. Now, it was planned to alleviate the water shortage problems in the area. However, due to persistent problems with the scheme and minimal water use reduction from residents, South Africa's 6th largest metro needs a miracle to avoid day zero, with reports indicating that the city has less than 30 days water supply before its taps run dry. Now, the ACDP does believe in miracles and does believe in prayer. However, at the same time, one needs to be good stewards of the existing water supply and ensure that leakages are prevented. And whilst we appreciate the committee's oversight visit to the province, we believe that not enough has been done to prepare the metro and other towns such as Butterworth for the looming water crises. The questions can rightfully be asked why the Nooitgedacht water scheme has taken so long to complete. And in this regard, the ACDP welcomes the report that the root causes of the department's challenges or risks are budget allocation constraints, unforeseen wet, hot, windy weather conditions, wage discrepancies, work packages to local SMMEs, slow procurement processes at Amatola Water Board, and delays in the payment of invoices to contractors. Now, this is totally unacceptable and has contributed to the water crisis in the province and, of course, in the metro. Had the Nooitgedacht Project 3 been finalized according to the original timeline, it could have alleviated the crisis at the metro or at least have postponed the looming day zero. The ACDP would like to express its gratitude to the members of the Portfolio Committee that conducted this oversight and will support this report. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. UDM. AGM. Good.
House Chairperson. Hello.
Okay.
House Chairperson, did you call good?
Okay, honourable members. Honourable members, please. Go ahead, honourable member from Good.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, it is said that in the near future, wars will be fought over access to clean water. Across the world, more and more rivers are dammed to provide for more and more people and more industry. And there's more and more pollution and less water for people to drink. It's a finite resource. And despite all our cleverness, people have yet to invent systems to affordably desalinate or decontaminate it. The report focusing on Eastern Cape water and sanitation projects is critically important for two reasons. One, it showcases a level of oversight that should be the norm, not the exception. And two, it illuminates the growing crisis in our country in respect of the management or mismanagement of precious resources as if there's no tomorrow. The Eastern Cape is in desperate need of intervention, but so is the rest of the country. The health of our water supply is a great leveler in our unequal society, like Eskom. The overwhelming majority of citizens are not self-sufficient. We all need clean water to function. We need it running into our townships and informal settlements. We need decent and dignified sanitation systems. Our farmers need water for their crops, and our industries need water to survive and enable the economy to grow. The report provides evidence of delays, crucial mistakes, and a lack of accountability that continues to pollute our state-owned enterprises. The city of Makanda was announced in May as one of the worst 3 water quality municipalities in the entire Eastern Cape. Yet the municipality has received 700 million rand over the past 9 years to fix it. These numbers are absurd. The Amatola Water Board has meanwhile stated that the situation is dire, both in water supply and with regard to their financial capability to pay their workers for the rest of the year. House Chair, we cannot continue to accept constant cash injections into failed ventures. South Africans should be grateful for the report. They would be more grateful if they saw some consequences and improvements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. NFP? AIC? COPE? PAC? Al-Jamaa? ANC? ANC?
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, the African National Congress is unequivocal in this support for the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation Oversight Visit report tabled on the 14th March. Our support for the Oversight report is informed by the ANC government's commitment to expand the access to water services to our people through the construction of water dams and the development of the water infrastructure for those communities that were formerly excluded by successive colonial and apartheid government. Just to clarify issues raised in this platform, yes, we went there to familiarize the committee on the challenges of water, but we understood when we got there on the huge challenges, more especially on Zimvumu, where it speaks about road access. What does it mean to first start with the road access, not starting with water provision? Our support for the Oversight Chair, the Honorable Chairperson, the African National Congress acknowledges the sum of our people, particularly in the deep rural areas of the former Transkei and Ciskei, are still reliant on the communal dams and rivers as their source of water for both personal, domestic use and agricultural purposes. We further acknowledge the risks associated with the inaccessibility of water by our people, in particular women, children, and people living with disabilities, child-headed families, widows, and LGBTQI+ sectors. Not only the physical risk of being physically violated by criminals, but also the quality of water found in those dams and rivers may not be held required standards, even during COVID-19. Yes, the institutionalization of water boards by the minister or restructure them is to ensure the effectivity and efficiency and value for money on the water provision. It's not a sin to do so, is to really address where there are gaps and challenges in those water boards. The Constitution of the Republic, Section 27, with subsection 1B states that everyone has a right to access to sufficient food and water, and that the state must take reasonable legislative and other measures within the available resources to achieve the progressive realization of those rights. The National Development Plan 2030 further requires our ANC government to ensure that all people have access to clean potable water and that there's enough water for agriculture and industry, recognizing the trade-off in the use of water. The ANC government approach to provision of water seeks to address not only water supply, but issues concerning equity and transformation. You must recall that as we deliver, we must also transform and ensure that we redress. We do those on both. Honorable Chair, our ANC government is committed to ensure that water supply is sufficient enough for people's livelihoods. And that legislative provision guarantees each person at least 25 liters of water per day or 6 kiloliters of water per household per month. Further, the ANC government has committed that water should be physically accessible within 200 meters of each household. In addition to that, our government has made provision for those who cannot afford to pay not to be unfairly discriminated against because of their socioeconomic position. The water coming out of the taps should be clean and safe drinking water. And we do want to say that we are getting fruits from our entities. The committee appreciates the technology that is presented to us by the Water Commission research that addresses the issues of groundwater. The African National Congress recognizes that water as a natural resource is very critical for economic growth, but also as a natural resource that we utilize for the socio-economic transformation. The Eastern Cape province has the potential of being an agricultural hub of the country, and this can only be possible if you address the water challenges in that particular province. Honorable Chairperson, the African National Congress is confident that the Department of Water and Sanitation has taken all reasonable measures to ensure the realization of right to access to sufficient water through the rolling of water infrastructure projects as contained in the Oversight report. And one that became very clear to us is that the issue of scarcity of water may be there, but the whole issue that needs that distribution is the bulk infrastructure, which necessitates huge budgets from government. Honorable Chair, part of the functions of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee is to monitor and oversee the work of the department and its entities under which the committee falls to ensure that departmental policy and budget are used effectively and efficiently within the confines of our legislation. The oversight visit to Eastern Cape is part of that work in ensuring that department is accountable both for policy implementation and the budget. Chairperson, is proper to clarify issues raised here. One may accuse the African National Congress of delays. The truth is, who excluded the majority and considered the minority to get all services? In the Nationalist Party and the DA today, we should clarify those particular issues. As one of the members that formed part of the oversight visit to the Eastern Cape can attest that there are challenges in the implementation of the projects, and we are confident that those challenges would be addressed by the department under the leadership of the Minister, Honorable Mtono. Honorable Chair, our support for the Portfolio Committee Oversight report is based on the following.
Thank you.
On the bulk water infrastructure projects, which will expand to access to clean potable.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Honorable Chair, the African National Congress hereby submits our declaration in support of the Portfolio Committee Oversight report as presented by the committee. Thank you very much.
And I recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party from the chamber.
Chairperson, on behalf of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party, I move that the report be adopted.
Motion is that the report be adopted. Any objections? No objections agreed to. Fourth order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Police on South African Human Rights Commission report of Northwest Provincial Investigative hearing into lack of safety and security measures in schools for children with disabilities in South Africa.
I will now call upon the Honorable TM Chairperson to introduce the report from the chamber.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. It is my privilege to introduce the Portfolio Committee on Police's report on the investigative hearings held by the South African Human Rights Commission into the lack of safety and security measures in schools with children with disabilities in the Northwest. Honorable House Chairperson, this report was well overdue and it is really a historic report. What the committee is doing now is going through very, very detailed oversight on what has been omitted, what was done, and what was not approved. So I think we will address the backlog, and we hope to address whatever backlogs there have been with even previous committees' work. Honorable House Chairperson, in terms of Chapter 9 of the Constitution, the South African Human Rights Commission was created to support our democracy. Firstly, we await their report on the violence in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Once that report comes to us, we'll also address it speedily. This report concerns a very vulnerable group. The one we're dealing with today deals with children with disabilities. The committee has noted with concern that the hearings in the Northwest found that there is a general lack of the relationship between special schools and departments such as SAPS to address issues of crime prevention, particularly the prevention of child abuse. Since then, we have taken a very keen interest in ensuring that SAPS actually does provide this service. The school safety protocol is being reviewed by the Department of Basic Education and SAPS to be in line with the diverse forms of violence and crime that are still prevailing at our schools. Honorable Chairperson, you could then understand that the protocol which they had been overtaken by events and had been quite outdated. The primary mandate of protecting schools, all schools, and not only schools, special schools, lies with the Department of Basic Education, and the SAPS is only a secondary stakeholder. However, this does not allow SAPS to abdicate their responsibility to ensure that all our children are safe. As part of the school safety protocol, schools are linked to police stations, and priority schools, including schools with special needs, are identified, focusing on bullying, gender-based violence, gangsterism, the use of weapons, substance abuse, and harmful religious practices. Honorable House Chairperson, I would like to request that all members of Parliament, irrespective of political party, adopts a school, and that through adopting a school, you look at this kind of requirements for safety of schools, safety at schools, not only at special schools. We are compromised by drug abuse, sexual violence against learners. We are compromised by unsafe toilets. That is also a crime. It's a crime against learners, because when our children are not safe at schools, there's child kidnapping from schools. It means a safe space, which is supposed to be a safe haven for our future generation, is compromised. Let it not be done in our lifetime. Let it not be done in the term of office of this Parliament. Let us all adopt schools. It should not be a political thing. Let us not do grandstanding, but let us not appear at the event after the event has already happened. Let us appear at the school to do not only oversight visit, but to mentor young people. Young children are now raping and sodomizing children. Learners with special needs are being raped and sodomized. So what kind of culture are we having? What kind of young youth generation or new generation are we having? Honorable members, subsequent to the deliberations of the report, we propose that there should be further relationships from all stakeholders with schools, that we implement a full school safety strategy, that we provide a detailed report on the implementation of the plan. We also propose that Parliament adopts the report. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The GA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, the Northwest hearing into lack of safety measures in schools for children with disabilities was held in November 2017. The report was tabled in Parliament in 2019, and it was then referred to the Police Committee, which finally dealt with it in 2021. At the time of the hearings, and in spite of numerous efforts, neither the then Minister of Police, Fikile Mbalula, nor any SAPS representative actually attended the hearings. Disabled children are among the most vulnerable in our society, and they do deserve so much better than this treatment by their government, and SAPS in particular. And to highlight just how little this government and the SAPS cares for disabled persons, I want to draw the attention of this House to an incident which took place earlier today when a taxpayer-funded and fueled VIP presidential protection vehicle was seen parked in a handicapped parking bay on St. John's Road in Sea Point at approximately 12 o'clock. I've sent the photographs of this vehicle to the National Police Commissioner, and I expect him to take decisive action against this officer. It is abundantly clear from our own experiences, the SA Human Rights Commission report, and throughout the committee's deliberations, that the South African Police Service is woefully unprepared and sometimes unwilling to deal with people with disabilities and children with disabilities in particular, and that more must be done to train the South African Police Service members in this regard. Chairperson, the DA supports the report.
Thank you very much. EFF.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Can you hear you, Babu Shambeni?
Thank you, Chairperson. This week is the International Child Protection Week, in which the safety and well-being of children is going to be given prominence. And we will hear empty speeches about fake commitment to the well-being of children. A country that fails to guarantee the protection and well-being of children, particularly children with disabilities, it's scraping at the bottom, and its leaders are not worthy of the name. The Human Rights Commission report on the plight of children with disabilities at schools in the Northwest, and the inability of the police has plight on our democracy. This does not seem to provide learning for children with special needs. If it does, SAPS is simply not interested in extending this protection to these schools. These children then become unprotected victims of crime, of drug abuse, and even sexual abuse. The recommendation by this committee for SAPS to simply establish relations with special schools is not enough. It must not simply be a matter of relations. It must be a core deliverable of every single police station to have a fully dedicated focus on the protection of children in special schools. We do not think committee seriously deliberated on the gravity of the findings of the Human Rights Commission on the state of safety of children with disabilities in the Northwest. We therefore reject this report, Chair.
Thank you very much. FF Plus.
No declaration, Chair.
Sorry. What's happened? When's Zenjan namhlanje? IFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The oversight for today or for this time is very crucial and very unsettling and very unpleasant when we hear it. Children have a special place in the society. They carry each country's hope for the future, but they need care and protection. Our Constitution in Section 29 recognizes this and give every child the right to be protected from maltreatment and neglect and abuse and degradation. Ingane lezi esikhuluma ngazo zihlupheka kwedlula thina abantu abadala ngoba azikwazi ukuzenzela, azikwazi ukwenza lutho. Angisaphathi ke lezi okuthiwa ama-special needs, lezi ezi-disabled, engicelayo umnyango wakwa-basic education ukuthi akabuke iy'kole lezi zama-special needs nama-hostel akhona ukuthi izingane lezi ezi-disabled ziphatheke kanjani, zidinga ukuphathwa kanjani. Umzali uyithathe waze wayisala phana njengoba edingani kuyo. Zolo lokhu lapha Olundi kade kune march la ubaba weingane ezimbili enye u12 years enye u5 years wavele wayibulala. Waboshwa ke umphakathi wambamba eseyibulele njengamanje uqhongoza ngaphandle uthi yena unikezwe ibail unama rights. Ngiyafisa nokuthi siwabuke lama rights victim nama rights perpetrator. The report stated the investigation established that at the time of the fire, there were full, adequate safety and security measures in place to protect the learners. Based on the report, no action appears to have been taken following those findings. Then during 2017, on-site inspection, another special schools in Northwest Province by SAA HRC commissioners, it became apparent that there were a number of imminent safety and security issues. This resulted in the investigation hearing that launch of the report under discussion in August 2019. Kusikhathaza kakhulu ke thina njenge IFP ukuthi asiwuzwa umnyango wakwa education ukuthi uthini ngalokhu ngoba kwenzakala ezikoleni. The IFP support the report.
Thank you very much. FF Plus.
No declaration, Chair.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, in 2015, the Northwest Provincial Office of the Human Rights Commission initiated an investigation into the tragic deaths of 3 learners aged 16, 17, and 18 years caused by a fire in the Learners Hostel of the Northwest School for the Deaf. And it was also reported that 23 learners sustained injuries whilst trying to escape the fire. And the investigation established that at the time of the fire, there were woefully inadequate safety and security measures in place for the learners. And following further visits by the commissioners, they concluded that the lack of adequate safety and security measures in schools for learners with disabilities was a systemic problem in the province, necessitating a broader intervention and hearings, which culminated in this report. Now, the report and the recommendations of the Commission are intended to constitute an urgent intervention, compelling all relevant state bodies to actively take steps to mitigate ongoing safety and security concerns. And every MP should read the report, which states that, quote, the systemic failures identified in this report demonstrate a lack of political will to dedicate resources to ensure the implementation of sustainable solutions to ensure students' safety. Public schools for learners with special education needs remain on the fringes of South Africa's education system, as evidenced by the poor budgeting, planning, and accountability measures that are in place. Insufficient commitment has been shown to ensuring the rights of education, dignity, equality, and even life of learners with disabilities in the province are protected and realized. And that these inadequate safety and security measures not only pose a physical threat to learners, but it also has further consequences as it signals to these learners with disabilities that they are not acknowledged or valued by South African society. Now, the Commission also indicates it admits the realities of resource constraints, but this cannot be used as a justification to fail to mitigate the imminent risks that have been manifested at the expense of lives of learners in these special schools. And this is a severe indictment, and the Police Portfolio Committee correctly took this report very seriously and required answers. And the SAP's presentation revealed a disturbing lack of relationship between special schools and the SAPs. And the ACDP is in agreement with the committee's reports that it SAPS must develop this relationship with special schools. They must implement the full school safety strategy in special schools and take all additional steps necessary for crime prevention and safety at special schools and detail report on implementation. Now, the ACDP looks forward to further monitoring and implementation to ensure that all government departments make sure that the tragedy that occurred at this fire never occurs again. I thank you. The ACDP will support this report.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Members are requested to keep a reasonable distance at all times as an observation of health protocols. But I see that at times that is not observed by members. So this is just a reminder. Thank you very much. UDM, ATM, good.
House Chair, we have no declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. NFP, AIC, COPE, PAC, Al-Jama, ANC.
I'll say no declaration.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The ANC welcomed the report by the Human Rights Commission on the Northwest Provincial Investigative hearing into the lack of safety and security measures in school for the children living with disability. The Northwest Provincial Office initiated an own accord in investigation in the death of 3 learners caused by fire in the learners' hostels of the Northwest School for Deep. The fire resulted in the death of 3 female learners, aged 16, 17, and 18, and it was also reported that there were more learners who sustained injuries while trying to escape. The hearing in the Northwest made the following observation: that there were no working relation and collaboration between SAPS and the special schools, and this it's very difficult to have key crime prevention measures to be achieved and to protect the children from abuse. In trying to prevent this kind of crime from schools, SAPS has developed a school safety and security plan to prevent and combat crime in schools, and plan must also be extended to those special schools. The committee recommends that SAPS to work on its relation with special schools and other relevant departments on school safety and security program. SAPS must also develop additional measures to enforce safety measures in schools, especially on special schools. SAPS should also submit a detailed progress report on the implementation of this strategy. This is to ensure that the children who are the most vulnerable in our society, they are well protected. The ANC understands that the victim of violence in the society, especially most vulnerable groups and children living with disability, must receive extra measures to ensure their safety from all sorts of abuse and violence. Honorable House Chair, the African National Congress welcome and support the report and recommend that the report be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
House Chair,
Yes, Honorable Member.
can you please register the objection of the EFF?
Noted. Thank you. Having noted that objection, the report is agreed to. Thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes the business for the day. And the House is
Long live the chair, Tata Ntombela.